and he based it on the executive branch's ability to have prosecutorial discretion. Do you believe federal administrative agencies are required to operate based on congressional or executive action when the two are in conflict?
Well, look, I mean, I'm suing the Obama administration right now under EPA rules.
Me too.
I mean, we have something going on. And the reason is that that's the thing I don't quite understand. Now, I used to be a congressman, and I don't think we've ever seen this kind of activity. I can't remember any. I don't think, General, that the bureaucrats shouldn't be making laws either. And this is something that I don't quite understand. I have an economic proposal to balance the federal budget, to cut taxes, and I've done this before. I was chairman of the budget committee in Washington. We created jobs. That's the whole purpose for it. The economy was growing. The same thing in Ohio. We were way in the hole, and now we're doing terrific, with still ways to go. But the thing I've never understood is why we let bureaucrats do what they do. So in regard to that, I would freeze all federal regulations for at least a year, and I would force the Congress to vote on these things. If it's more than $100 million, there ought to be a congressional vote. And then we need to go back and look at the regulations we have, because these are the things that are killing small business. Big companies can absorb a lot of these regulations, but small people can't do it. In my state, and look, when I talk about Ohio, I'm really talking about America. We're just nothing more than a snapshot of the entire country. I mean, we have everything in Ohio. When I travel the country, I find Ohio everywhere, and when I'm in Ohio, I find America everywhere. That's why the elections are always so close, because it's so competitive and a snapshot of who we are. I have created a mechanism that we begin to repeal regulations that don't make any sense. And if I found out that my bureaucrats were making law, how long do you think they'd be there doing that? Okay, they wouldn't be doing that, because I'm the governor and I got a legislature. So the idea that unelected bureaucrats can do all this is a really, it's a bad idea. Secondly, what we really need to do is, I got to get a lot more programs back to where you live. I mean, why run all this stuff out of Washington? Education ought to be run in South Carolina. Medicaid ought to be run. Transportation. Hey, I'll give you another example. Senators here have been struggling like crazy to figure out a transportation bill. Do you have that done yet, Senator? What are you here for? You better be back there getting this done. But here's what I'm proposing. You think about this. Right now in this state, you go and you fill up your car and a truck, whatever, and you pay a gas tax. You then collect that money and you send it to Washington. They then, in the committees, take that money and do with it what they want, and then they send less back. So why not just not send it there to begin with? Okay, and then what we could do is we need to maintain the interstate. So put a couple pennies down there in the till, let them maintain the interstate, and then you can keep whatever you raise here, you keep. And then you can pave your roads to whatever you want. You can have whatever priorities you want. It shouldn't be, somebody in Washington trying to decide what should be happening in South Carolina. Now, we've actually voted on this several times, and I guess we're getting a little bit closer to passing it. But I feel very strongly about the ability of states to manage their own infrastructure. For example, I believe in tolling. Okay, I don't know how you all feel about it, but if you use something, pay for it. You don't have to toll everything, but some things you can toll. Right now, you can't toll a road that has federal money in it unless you go out and build another lane. Isn't that right, Senator? I mean, what kind of deal is that? And then the federal government decides to do things like Amtrak. They've got, I don't know if you know this, if you've ever been on an Amtrak train, but they have a restaurant on there, and the restaurant can't even make money. And it's not like you can get off, So, and they offered me, by the way, a high-speed train. This is really great. It was going to go from like Columbus to Cleveland, maybe to Cincinnati. High speed. It was going to go 39 miles an hour. I could run faster than the train. So better than sending our money down there to have people do what they want with it, just keep it here. And I think, Senator, the whole country would be better under this. And if there's some states that need a little extra help, we'll throw another penny in. That's where we ought to be going on this. This is the 21st century, by the way. But, the fact is that these regulations are killing small businesses, Secondly, I think there ought to be, when we do a regulation, there ought to be a sense that the benefit outweighs the cost. We don't do that either. I mean, it's just all screwed up, isn't it? So we got to have big change. Now let me explain something to you. People can talk about big change. I've delivered big change. I know how to get these things done. It's one thing to talk about them. Senator, am I right? It's another thing to do them. And the things I talk about are not designed to get me, they're not an election document. They are a governing document. And so I think these things I talk about today are things that I hope you would understand. These are the kind of things I would do, like right off the bat.